Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Janet Semenova, and I'm here with Angie Rice, and we're super excited to be talking with Alex Roth today from the Hawaii Visitors and Convention Bureau about one of our favorite destinations in the United States and the world, the gorgeous, gorgeous islands of Hawaii. I personally love Hawaii. All the islands. I think my favorite is the island of Kauai. I could literally see myself like living in Hanalei and walking on Hanalei Bay every day of my life. But there's so much to discover. And one of the reasons we wanted to have Alex on with us today is because a lot of people will ask us, how do I choose the right island of Hawaii? Are all the islands of Hawaii similar? What is the difference between the islands? You know, are certain islands better for families? Are certain islands better for couples? Are certain islands better for romance? There's so much to offer on each of the islands, and we just wanted to have Alex on today to kind of go over everything and to share her wealth of knowledge and help us share this information with all of you guys and inspire everyone in our group to want to travel to Hawaii. So if you are watching this on replay, please comment, like, and ask your questions, and we will make sure to answer them. Welcome, Alex.
Aloha. Thank you all so much for having me today. I'm so happy to be here to share with you my home, the beautiful Hawaiian Islands. And I do have some gorgeous pictures of Hawaii, of course, to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can all kind of envision ourselves transporting there this morning. We're going to kind of keep this like a conversation, but I do want to share some high-level things up front regarding traveling to Hawaii now, of course, during the pandemic and as we move forward. And then I'll get kind of more into the nitty-gritty about the islands and each of their islands' personalities and things to do. So first off, I know that traveling anywhere right now is rather difficult. There are all these different rules and protocols. So I'm going to just briefly share with you a little bit about what it's like to travel to Hawaii right now. But of course, to learn more about all of the details here, this is why you have a travel advisor, because they really keep up to date with everything that's been going on with these destinations and the protocols. So we do have a very, very strict set of rules for traveling to Hawaii right now. We are welcoming visitors to join us and to enjoy our islands and bypass our 10-day quarantine if travelers are able to get a negative COVID test up to 72 hours prior to flying to Hawaii. Now, you need that negative COVID test prior to flying into the state of Hawaii, and for the most part, traveling between islands as well. And what's so different about Hawaii's rules here is that all of the COVID-19 tests that are accepted by the state of Hawaii have to be from our trusted testing and travel partners. So there is a website, hawaiicovid19.com/travel, that lists all of those testing partners. And again, go to a travel advisor because they can give you all the detailed information regarding where to get tested, what's accepted, what's the right time frame, etc. But it is extremely important to know this when you're traveling to Hawaii, because if you don't follow these rules, unfortunately, you will be placed into a full 10-day quarantine, and nobody wants that, especially when you're coming to the beautiful islands of Hawaii.
Alex, real quick, I know that the CDC just came out with their statement that people who are vaccinated no longer need to provide testing and quarantine. Have you heard anything about those rules changing? Have there been any announcements, or are we still a little bit of a ways off from that?
That is a great question. So Hawaii has been actually waiting for that CDC guideline to come out. Now that it has come out, I'm sure our lawmakers are kind of trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work out logistically, whether that means you need a vaccine passport, whether that means you can just show your vaccine card. So those things are being worked out in the back end right now. And so meaning that if you're traveling to Hawaii, like within the next couple of days, unfortunately, you still will have to test. But hopefully soon we'll get an announcement from the governor of Hawaii that will share what these policies are going to look like if you are a vaccinated individual. So stay tuned for that. We just got that CDC guideline just a few days ago. So, we're just still waiting on the announcement right now. But I also want to share with you a little bit about how our travelers are feeling when coming to Hawaii. We've actually already been seeing quite an uptick in travelers coming to Hawaii, especially since so many other destinations around the world still have a lot of restrictions. And what we're finding, according to a survey of travelers who came to the islands in February, is that 82% of our visitors rated their trip in Hawaii as excellent. 92% said their trip either exceeded or met their expectations. 78% would recommend visiting Hawaii in the next 6 months, and 85% of travelers said that the pre-testing process went smoothly. So majority of our travelers are coming to Hawaii, they're having an amazing time, and they're having a very smooth process of flying into the state of Hawaii. And I do want to remind you that, of course, we are still in this pandemic, and so we do still have a statewide mask mandate in Hawaii. And we do ask that all visitors and residents wear face coverings when in public, indoors or outdoors, wherever you can't maintain that physical distance of 6 feet. So if you're on the beach and you've settled in, you have that 6-foot distance between you and the next party, you can go ahead and take your mask off and enjoy during that time. Or perhaps when you're hiking and it's just you and your party and there's nobody else around, you can take your mask off for a little while. But we do ask that you be respectful and put that mask back on when you do see others approaching your space.
Do you know if people have to wear masks at the swimming pools in their hotels at the pool?
That's a great question. So hotels, many of them actually right now take reservations for pool time. So that way that they can maintain a certain amount of social distancing. And, again, once you're settled in, as long as you have that 6-foot distance between you and somebody else, you can go ahead and take your mask off and enjoy during that time. Yeah, that's another great question. And as far as what to expect in Hawaii with things that are open, is there to do? There are a lot of things that are open and available to visitors. Restaurants, attractions, museums, parks, beaches, hiking trails, etc. So there are a lot of things that you can see and do. But again, I just want to remind you all that we are in a pandemic and Hawaii is in this transitionary period. So there are a lot of places that may have capacity restrictions, which means that we highly, highly recommend making reservations in advance. And again, that's where Angie and Janet and other travel advisors can help you to make those reservations for activities, cars, etc. in advance, especially rental cars right now. It's actually a very limited supply in the islands and across the mainland, I hear as well. Now that, operations are starting to ramp back up, cars are hopefully being shipped to Hawaii soon, but probably not so many in the near future. So these are really things that you have to think about when traveling to Hawaii and other destinations right now. It's to really book things in advance. Additionally, I just want to remind you all that we still have social distancing guidelines that we ask that all visitors respect. And speaking of respect, I just want to share with you this concept of malama. Malama is a Hawaiian word and it's a value, which means to take care of or to care for. And I think it's so important during this time, throughout this whole year, it's been more important than ever to care for each other, right? And to care for the destinations that we visit. And so as we welcome visitors back, we're not just inviting travelers to come to Hawaii, but we're inviting travelers to come to Hawaii and visit mindfully, to form that deeper connection with our people and our culture, and to give back when you come to visit us. And we promise that it'll make for a much more enriching and immersive vacation experience when you do so. In fact, we're actually encouraging our visitors and incentivizing them to give back to the destination through an incentive program called Malama Hawaii, which will help us to protect and preserve Hawaii for the future, but also give visitors a more meaningful and enriching travel experience. And by this, I mean visitors can now participate in a voluntourism activity in exchange for a free night stay at one of our participating hotels. So you can learn more about this at gohawaii.com/malama or talk to your travel advisor. And you can, be able to earn extra nights for giving back to the destination. And we've got some amazing nonprofit organizations that some of our hotels have partnered up with. You can help to with a reforestation initiative and plant some native Hawaiian trees. You can help with beach cleanups. You can help to rebuild fish ponds. So you're really learning more about our culture and sustainability as you are giving back, and again, having that immersive travel experience.
Alex, I so love that, because especially for like families traveling with children, it makes it such a more meaningful and authentic experience. Of course, Hawaii is beautiful. Of course, we all go to Hawaii because we want to have some relaxation. We want to explore. We want to participate in the adventures. We want to enjoy the beautiful beaches and hospitality and food and resorts. But when you spend a little bit of your time, even one day of your trip, even a few hours, participating in something that is giving back, I think it just elevates the entire travel experience. And so I love that they have this Malama program, because it's such an easy way to kind of integrate that into a travel itinerary. Plus, of course, who doesn't want to earn free hotel nights?
Exactly, exactly. And you know what? So much of this is actually really tied to Hawaii's culture. Back in the day in old Hawaii, the Hawaiians lived off of the land. They lived among, these fish ponds, which is kind of like their refrigerator, where, they would have the small fish go swim into the fish ponds, and as they grew bigger, they couldn't get back out, and so that's where they would fish for their food. Of course, the land and the forest is something that's super important to Hawaii as well. So to be able to plant a native Hawaiian koa tree, for instance, you're really connecting with our history and our culture by doing so. And of course, while you participate in these programs, you get to learn so much about the way the Hawaiians lived, and learn how this is really helping to perpetuate our culture as well. So I just love to invite visitors to have a chance to form that deeper connection with us.
And part of the learning process begins with knowing what options are available. And it's a great way to educate your children, if you're planning a trip to Hawaii, of the different ways that you can volunteer and how it does play a part in the experience. And it brings them closer to the culture experiences of the natives of Hawaii as well.
Definitely. Yeah. So now let's kind of zoom out a little bit more and go into the different islands and talk a little bit about each island's personality. We actually have 6 islands that visitors can go to, and they each have their own unique personality, and they can definitely be for different types of clients. So as we're going through this, definitely think about which island combinations might be best for you, for your family, for your partner, etc. So we're going to start with the oldest and the northernmost of the islands, the island of Kauai, and work our way down the island chain. So let's go ahead and start with Kauai. Here's a beautiful shot of the Napali coastline. So Kauai's personality is lush, idyllic, peaceful, serene, immersed in nature, endless shades of green. So I think you can already start to picture, what type of person would love this island, right? If you are really attracted to nature, if you're attracted to that peaceful, immersive environment, or if you're traveling to escape the busyness of life and really just relax and rejuvenate, this can be a great island for you. And of course, rejuvenation means a lot of things. It can really mean just relaxing on the beach or enjoying a spa treatment. Or it could be to take in the breathtaking views and vistas of the Napali coast or Waimea Canyon, maybe to do a thrilling activity, for instance, like an ATV ride or zip lining, or even mountain tubing down these irrigation channels that were created during the sugar plantation era. These are a lot of ways that you can relax and rejuvenate on the island of Kauai. And I will just share a couple updates regarding Kauai, because just yesterday, April 5th, Kauai recently rejoined our Safe Travels program. So now the policies or the rules to travel to Kauai are pretty much the same as traveling to the other islands. There are a few additional details. For instance, you are recommended to download the Aloha Safe app. But, these are things that you can talk to about with your travel advisor when you do book a trip to Kauai or any of the other islands with all these details. For now, you can just think about all of the fun things that you can do on each of these islands. And I think, Janet, you said that Kauai is your favorite island, right?
Yes, I absolutely love Kauai. I love the whole island, but in particular, I love the North Shore of Kauai. I love Hanalei, the town. I just think it's just a really magical place. And Hanalei Bay, I think, is probably my favorite beach in the world. And that's saying a lot because I have been blessed to have visited quite a few beaches in my life. But the Nepali coast, the amount of activities, the pristine nature of Kauai, I love that it's not as crowded, it's not as busy. It really feels like old world Kauai. Like I feel like when you go to Hawaii. I feel like when you go to Kauai, it's like Hawaii 50 years ago.
Yeah. And you know what? Kauai is one of the oldest of the islands. I think it's 6 million years old. So it definitely has a lot of history there. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next island, the next oldest, which is Oahu. So here's a beautiful shot of the iconic Waikiki Beach and, of course, Diamond Head. The Hawaiian name for it is Leahi in the background. So the island of Oahu tends to be very energetic. It is vibrant. It's contemporary. It really has this cosmopolitan town and country appeal where you have the metropolitan city life of Honolulu and Waikiki. But once you get out, you can really enjoy the country ambiance, the laid back energy of the North Shore or, the west side of the island, the northeast side of the island. So definitely get a chance to, get out and explore the entirety of this island. Additionally, this is a great island if you're an active traveler. If you have a whole checklist of activities you want to complete, throughout your trip in Hawaii, if you're relaxed by having fun, and if you love to prioritize nature, cuisine, historic landmarks, shopping, nightlife, etc., this is a great island for you.
I think it's also important to share that it's probably one of the islands where you don't necessarily need a car. In most cases, people do not rent cars. So if you're concerned about having to rent a car, during the pandemic versus just a quick transfer and having everything more at your disposal and within close proximity, it's certainly in an island where a car isn't as necessary. Whereas Kauai, Maui, you're really going to want a car to really explore the different places on the island.
Sure, yeah, and Oahu does have a lot of great public transportation. We've got lots of, ride sharing like Uber and Lyft. And, maybe when you want to take a trip over to the other side of the island, for instance, or kind of go explore more, you can rent a car for that day, or you can arrange for transfers to get to certain sites like the Pearl Harbor or the Polynesian Cultural Center, etc. And speaking of which, of course, we have a lot of historic and iconic landmarks here in Hawaii. One of them being, of course, Pearl Harbor Historic Parks. Keep in mind that right now there is limited capacity on the ferry to get to the USS Arizona Memorial. So that is definitely something you want to reserve in advance if that's on your to-do list. But there's also lots of other things to do at Pearl Harbor Historic Parks. There's the USS Bowfin submarine, there is the Pacific Aviation Museum, a great visitor center, etc. So certainly, think about all the activities that you can do there when you're visiting. Some other historic landmarks include Iolani Palace, which of course is one of the only royal palaces in the entire United States. And it is a really amazing place to go and learn more about Hawaii's history. It's a very regal palace and it is located right in downtown Honolulu. Additionally, when you get out to the North Shore or to the other side of the island, you can check out the charming town of Haleiwa, go watch the surfers in the winter months, or check out the Polynesian Cultural Center, which has also recently reopened in January of this year. You can really experience 7 different Polynesian cultures here with the different Pacific Island villages, and they also have some incredible entertainment as well. So lots of great things to do all across Oahu. This is just scratching the surface here. But now we're going to go on to the island of Maui. And Maui really tends to be laid back. It's leisurely, great for social interaction, friendly, not contrived. It's great for discovery in those charming small towns. So this might be a great island for you if you are looking for variety, choice, spontaneous adventures. Maybe you want to enjoy nature in a more passive way, like laying on the beach or meeting local artisans. You kind of want to go with the flow on your vacation. I like to describe Maui as being sophisticated yet down to earth at the same time. It's where larger than life natural wonders meet small town charm. So it really has a great blend of sophistication and simplicity as well. And I think, Angie, you mentioned that Maui is one of those islands that you would like to visit soon as well, right?
Right. I think my trip to Hawaii will definitely include multi-islands. I think it's, clearly just having spoken about a few of the islands, you do really get a different experience. If you're looking for some history and being in a bigger city, maybe 3, 4, 5 nights in Honolulu or Waikiki, followed by that relaxation that Maui provides or Kauai provides. So I think, for a lot of us, traveling to Hawaii is a journey. So if we can combine multiple islands and extend our stay, it really creates 2 vacations in one experience.
Absolutely. And as you're learning, these islands each have their own unique personality. So it's like kind of a whole different destination within just one island. And so combining it gives you a very diverse vacation experience. So speaking of some of the diverse experiences here on Maui, one of the top attractions is Haleakala, which is a dormant volcano that stands at about 10,000 feet high in elevation. It's an excellent place to go and see the sunrise, but we do require parking reservations if you are going up at sunrise and parking your car there. There are also a number of tours and excursions that you can do up to Haleakala, including one of my favorites, which is cycling down the slopes of Haleakala. So that's a really fun one to do. Additionally, there are some great things to go and explore, including some of the towns, ranches, vineyards in upcountry Maui, where you can visit the Ali'ikula Lavender Farm or the Maui Winery, where they make their own pineapple wine, Ocean Vodka, O'o Farm. So some great farm-to-table experiences there. Whale watching is, of course, incredibly popular in the Hawaiian Islands during our whale watch season, which is November through April. But the humpback whales really love the channel that goes between Maui and its sister islands. So if you're on Maui during that time, I would highly recommend doing a whale watch excursion. And of course, there's the Road to Hana as well, which you may have heard of. It is a 54-mile journey with these winding roads and 1-lane bridges, etc. So it really is more about the journey than the destination. You're going to get some beautiful views of the coastline, of waterfalls, some fun places to stop along the way. And then once you get into Hana, you can enjoy the black sand beach there at Wainapa Napa State Park, which you now need to make an advance reservation for at gowainapanapa.com. So you can do that up to 2 weeks in advance of going to the park. But again, this is why you go to a travel advisor, to get all of these tricks and tidbits to prepare you for your trip. And I just briefly want to share that Maui does also have 2 sister islands, Molokai and Lanai, which are part of the same Maui County. And they're very, very different, although they're both great places to go and unplug. So first off, Molokai, great place to unplug. It is very rustic, rugged, unspoiled, truly that natural old style of Hawaii. So if you're looking for community, that simpler life, kind of the, a blast from the past, and to really experience the culture of Hawaii, this may be a good island for you. I would recommend, if you are a really respectful, responsible traveler who truly wants to connect with the people and the culture, to perhaps consider Molokai. Now, one popular attraction here on this island is Kalaupapa National Historic Park, which is nicknamed, the leper colony. This is where those with Hansen's disease or leprosy were sent to live in exile for nearly a century. And so you can go and visit Kalaupapa. Currently, it has been closed throughout the pandemic. As you can imagine, this is a very, very vulnerable community. So I don't think it is open currently, but perhaps later in the future, some may be able to go back and visit Kalaupapa. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the island of Lanai, another place to unplug. But if you're more high-end, you want to unplug in luxury, then perhaps this is the island for you. It's serene, secluded, refined, but there's also some room for soft adventure here. So it kind of has that private island feeling, which is great, especially during this time of social distancing. We've got our, of course, the Four Seasons Resort here. There's also the new Four Seasons Sensei Retreat, which is actually the only all-inclusive that is in the Hawaiian Islands, but it is an all-inclusive wellness retreat. And in terms of activities and things to do here on Lanai, of course, you can enjoy some of those soft adventure activities like horseback riding, sporting clays and archery, guided UTV rides, golf, and certainly ocean activities as well.
Alex, would you say that Lanai is more, usually I think of Lanai as a great destination for honeymoons, for girls' getaways, for, romantic adult retreats. Do you think that it's better for adult-only type vacations, or would you recommend families visiting Lanai?
There are certainly things that families can do, especially if you think about like the horseback riding and the sporting clays and things like that. But with Lanai, it does have that really serene feeling. Like again, like I mentioned, kind of more of that private island feeling. So I do think more adults would enjoy this. Certainly honeymoons, girls' getaways, etc. And you can also do a day trip to Lanai from Maui if that is something that you might want to consider. There is a ferry that goes between Maui and Lanai. Now that's the only ferry that connects the islands. Everything else you'll have to take a plane ride, but the plane rides average about 30 minutes to get between islands for the most part. And then finally, we have the island of Hawaii, which is my home island. This is where I grew up. I know, Angie, you'd love to go to the Big Island. And that's what it is nicknamed, the Big Island, because it is larger than all the other islands combined. In fact, it's over 4,000 square miles, comparable to the size of the entire city of Los Angeles or the state of Connecticut. So the island of Hawaii is great for living culture. This island is about active exploration. It's really great for diverse climates. In fact, it has 10 out of the Earth's 14 climate zones. So you're really going to get those saturated blues, greens, blacks, and various different microclimates across the island. And certainly this is the island known for the active volcanoes as well. So if you are an active adventurous traveler, if you've got an insatiable curiosity, perhaps if you are interested in history and culture and natural wonders, this is going to be a great island for you. Certainly, this is an island where you're going to want to rent a car because, as I mentioned, it is a big island. And with all the different microclimates that this island offers, you're going to want to really be able to experience all that it has to offer.
And I will agree. I mean, I love the Big Island. We had such a fun trip there last time we were there. I mean, we literally went all around, but I will say, A, you definitely want a car, and B, I almost think it's better to stay at a couple different places because the island is so big. If you're staying, and you're doing beach time versus going to the volcano and doing, spending time at the volcano, it's hours and hours apart from each other. And there's just so much to see and do. I mean, a week to 10 days on the island of Hawaii, I think is a great amount of time.
Definitely. Yeah. And you can see in the map here in the corner. So we've got, the Kona airport and the Hilo airport. So you can certainly do like a split stay on the west side of the island or the east side of the island, maybe even fly into one side, fly out of the other. But truly, it does take hours. For instance, if you are staying on the west side of the island, in Kona or the Kohala Coast, which is where a majority of our hotels and resorts are, that's a great place for beach time, exploring many of our national historic sites, doing a lot of fun ocean activities, etc. But to get to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, for instance, which is a top attraction, it's about 3 hours of a drive from the west side of the island. Versus if you stay in Hilo, for instance, it's about a 45-minute drive. And Hilo and the east side of the island offers a really much more tropical climate. This is where you're going to get some beautiful rainforests and waterfalls, such as Akaka Falls, which is pictured here on the left. So really kind of figuring out your itinerary. This is what Janet and Angie can help you with so that you can really make the best of your vacation experience here. So I mentioned Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. It is a top attraction. In the past couple of months, we have started to see another lava flow. So you can get that orange glow if you're going to, go to the park or to take a helicopter ride over. Other fun things to do here are going snorkeling at Kealakekua Bay, which is on the west side of the island in Kona. It is a historical area, and it's also a marine conservation area with some beautiful, tropical marine life that you can see here. And of course, coffee, Kona coffee is incredibly popular all over the world, and it is grown right here in Kona on the island of Hawaii. But because of the island of Hawaii's microclimates, if anything can be grown or ranched anywhere, it can be done here on the island of Hawaii. So it's great if you are interested in agriculture or even just checking out the various farmers markets that we have on the island and kind of getting a chance to taste some of that local flavor. It's a really fun opportunity to do that. So lots of different things that we talked about here among all of the islands. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen because we've kind of gone through everything, but Angie, Janet, do you have any questions? Oh, you're on mute.
It's interesting. We talked about the importance of choosing which island based on your preferences and who you're traveling with and what you're trying to accomplish. But at the same time, I've learned there's within an island, you really have to consider the destinations. I mean, I'll take Maui as a perfect example. And Alex, I'd love for you to chime in to really talk about the difference between, staying in the southern region of Hawaii versus if you're staying more in the northern region of Kaanapali. Those are very different environments, so to speak. I mean, temperatures can vary at the same time if you're on the north side of the island versus the south side of the island.
Yeah, so it's definitely, Maui, island of Hawaii, really any of the islands, you are going to get the different microclimates. You're going to sort of get a different vacation feel. And certainly if you have a rental car, you can get out and experience, the various parts of the island. For instance, on Maui, the south side with Wailea, there's some really gorgeous resorts and properties there. It's, sort of that really laid back feeling, kind of more high-end luxury. We've got some beautiful beaches on that side. Whereas Kaanapali is a great area for families, for instance. Another wonderful place for beaches. You're close to the town of Lahaina, where you've got, Front Street, a lot of shops and galleries, things to do. So just sort of figuring out your vacation experience. This is where Hawaii can be a little overwhelming, right? There are so many things to see and do, and it truly is a destination experience. No matter how wonderful of a resort you're going to stay at, I'm sure you're going to be able to get out and really enjoy the islands. And this is where going to a travel advisor can really help to figure out what you can do in your limited time vacationing in Hawaii.
Right. And your type of accommodations really play a factor as well. I mean, Kauai is known for more private villa type accommodations versus which islands are more equipped to have condos versus resorts. Those are factors that I know some families, depending on your size, resort accommodations might require adjoining rooms, or you might need, a 2-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom with a kitchenette. So you have to really weigh into the type of accommodations because some islands are better equipped to accommodate larger groups than others.
Yeah, I'll say that all of the islands can certainly, it sort of depends on the inventory there. We can certainly accommodate all types of travelers, but it is the devil's in the details, right? And that's where you don't necessarily want to think about all those details. You want to think about how fun your trip is going to be and what exactly you want to do and what you want to experience. And Hawaii truly offers so much in the way of activities and sites and attractions and history. So I know no matter what, you're going to have an amazing time.
Alex, can we talk for a second about seasonality? I mean, that's a question that comes up a lot. And I think partially, when I talk to travelers about when to go to Hawaii, it depends on what their preferences are, right? Do you want to go in peak season? Do you want to go when prices are high and it's busiest? Do you want to go a little bit in shoulder season when, depending on where you're going, it might be a little bit rainier? Can we talk a little bit about how to choose when to go to the islands of Hawaii?
Yeah, Hawaii is a year-round great destination year-round for weather because we pretty much have summer year-round. So it's not so much picking based off of weather. I would say the seasonality does have to do more with the high and low and the peaks and valleys when it comes to visitor seasons. And certainly the summer and the winter are really busy months. If you think about it, across the US, there are, people trying to escape the cold in the wintertime, or families that can travel more in the summer when kids are on break, right? So this is where it can be a little bit more challenging to get those activities and excursions without making reservations in advance. Sometimes the prices can be a bit higher because of all the competition. So if you have some flexibility and you can travel during the shoulder season, spring and fall, you may be able to get some better rates or a little bit more availability when it comes to, booking last minute excursions or trips, things like that. Of course, I always would recommend to book in advance, especially, during this pandemic. And there are so many, capacity restrictions and limited things happening in Hawaii right now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love Hawaii. I personally like to travel when it's not as crowded, but we have kids. And so I think a lot of the seasonality, people assume that, things are really expensive, for example, in July or in December because it's the best weather. But sometimes it's really because that's when kids are off school, that's when you have break, and that's when families are traveling. And so availability is lower, so prices are higher. So it doesn't necessarily, if you have flexibility and you can travel a little bit, maybe in February or in October, those months tend to be weather-wise might be just as beautiful. They're less crowded. It's a little bit less expensive, and you can have sometimes a more enjoyable experience because you're not competing with everybody else who wants to travel over, the Christmas holidays or summer vacation.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll say about crowds in general is that also depends on which islands you're going to. Typically Oahu and Maui do get a lot of visitors, and especially in certain areas like Waikiki, it's a resort area, right? So you might have more crowds and whatnot there, but if you just get out to various parts of the island, you can kind of escape the crowds, or go to very different islands. Lanai, for instance, you're going to have very few crowds. So it really depends on what type of experience you're looking for. Some people really like that vibrancy, that the energy of having a lot of people. But Hawaii offers a whole array of different experiences, as we talked about today.
And we do have a question. How in advance do you recommend booking?
Yeah, I would highly recommend at least several months in advance. The pandemic has made things a little different because we've been seeing a lot more bookings, closer in, especially as things have been changing very quickly. So I am very curious actually to see what the average tends to be as we move forward. But, I would give yourself at least a month or two in advance to start booking things and to at least get a better sense of where you're going to stay, which islands you're going to go to, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think even especially over like Christmas holidays, I think we sometimes will see things booked up 3 to 6 months in advance already being sold out.
For the winter holiday, I also think it's important to recognize that a lot of the resorts have minimums, as much as 6 to 7 day minimum. So that's something you really have to plan your travel around, those minimums. And as it relates to wanting a direct flight over the holidays, that's also very important. You're going to find that the direct flights from your market sell out very quickly for the holiday season. And I've already run into that issue with travelers planning for December, January, just these last couple of weeks. So those types of situations can really bottleneck your travel if you don't plan ahead.
Yes, and as I mentioned in the beginning, right now rental cars are extremely limited in all of the islands. So the sooner you can book those, the better.
This was so informative. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. I mean, we all love the islands of Hawaii. I don't think I have ever met a person who went to Hawaii and didn't think it was an incredible island, and just have an amazing time. I think, whether you're going on a honeymoon or a family vacation or a multi-generational trip or a girls trip or a guys trip, golf trip, I mean, you can have a wellness experience there. There's truly something for everyone. And there's not that many destinations in the world that we can say that about. And you can really go any time of the year, which is also amazing. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your knowledge. And we hope we will be able to see you in Hawaii soon.
Thank you. Yes, come join us in Hawaii. I'm happy to see you all there. Mahalo. Thank you all so much.
Mahalo.
Bye-bye.